Hi everyone and welcome to our module on the arches of the foot. Now our feet are not entirely flat whenever we stand on a solid structure like the ground. This is because the feet contains three major arches that serve as a springboard, and they tend to present between the weight bearing part or point of the foot. These three arches include the um, transverse arc, which is a single transverse arc, and two longitudinal arches. So these are the arches there. They tend to form a bit of a triangle at the plantar surface of the foot. So you have one medial longitudinal arc, one lateral longitudinal arc, and then a transverse arc, forming three major arches there. As you notice in the image just at the side, the arches there tends to form like this springboard on the ground as we stand directly with the foot. So what are the functions of the arches of the foot? There are three major functions that they tend to play. One is that they help in distributing the body weight. So the body weight tends to run all the way from the pelvis down to the hip, then to the knee, then it's transmitted from the tibia down to the feet, and the weight is eventually distributed from the feet to the ground through the arches of the foot. They also act as a form of spring and a shock absorber while we run or walk, and they are important for mobility. Now, for each of the different arches of the foot, the medial longitudinal, the lateral longitudinal, and the transverse arc, there are three major components of structures that tend to be involved in forming them. These include bones, ligaments, and muscle. And for each of those different arches, we'll talk about each of those structures one by one. Starting with the medial longitudinal arc, the bones involved in forming the medial longitudinal arc includes the calcaneus, the talus, the navicular, the three cuneiform bones, and then the first to third metatarsal bones. And you can see each of those bones outlined in the image here. This is the calcaneus, is the talus, is the navicular bone just directly beneath the talus. Then the cuneiform bones, you can see one of the cuneiform bones here is the third, then the second bone, and then the first bone is not necessarily shown here. And then finally, we have the first three metatarsal bones. So this is first metatarsal, is the second metatarsal, and then the third metatarsal is not shown in the image here. But all three of these bones are going to unite together in the formation of that medial longitudinal arc, as shown in the image here. We have a total of six muscles involved in the formation of the medial longitudinal arc, and what you just need to know is to note them. This includes the tibialis anterior muscle, tibialis posterior muscle, flexor hallucis longus muscle, flexor digitorum longus, the intrinsic muscles of the foot, and the fibularis longus muscle. So all those muscles are shown in the image here. You can see the fibularis longus in the image here. You could see the tibialis posterior and anterior as well here. Most of the other muscles are not necessarily shown, but the major ones include the tibialis anterior, tibialis posterior, and the fibularis longus muscle, alongside the other ones listed in the slide. The last component of the medial longitudinal arc are the ligaments. There are also a total of six ligaments involved in forming the arc. This includes the spring ligaments, the deltoid ligaments, the plantar aponeurosis, the interosseous ligaments, the long plantar, and then the short plantar ligaments. Some of the ligaments are shown here, not all of them, but each of these ligaments tend to be found at the medial side of the foot, and they help in assisting in the strengthening and the formation of the medial longitudinal arc. Talking about the lateral longitudinal arc, in terms of the bones that tend to unite in forming it, this includes the calcaneus bone. So the calcaneus is involved in formation of both the medial and the lateral longitudinal arc. Besides the calcaneus, we have the cuboidal bone and then the fourth to fifth metatarsal bones being involved in forming the arc. So you can see the calcaneus bone present here. This is the cuboidal bone here, and these are the fourth to fifth metatarsal bones present here. You can see how those three to four structures are involved in forming the entire lateral longitudinal arc. In terms of muscular components, the muscles involved in forming the lateral longitudinal arc includes the fibularis longus as well. fibularis brevis, the flexor tritorum longus, and the intrinsic muscles of the foot. Then the ligaments involved in forming the lateral longitudinal arc includes the palmar aponeurosis, interosseous ligaments, and the long and short plantar ligaments. These are all ligaments that we see in the medial longitudinal arc. So aside the spring ligaments and deltoid ligaments, the rest of the ligaments of the medial longitudinal arc are involved in also strengthening and forming the lateral longitudinal arc. The last arc is the transverse arc, and the transverse arc is formed by the combination of three major forms of bones. This includes the base of all metatarsals. So all the metatarsals are involved in the formation of the transverse arc, the cuboidal bone, and the three cuneiform bone. So you could see the three cuneiform bone present here alongside the cuboidal bone will form the proximal part of the transverse arc, and then the first three metatarsals, the first five metatarsals rather, or rather all the metatarsals are involved in the formation of the distal part of the transverse arc. What muscles are involved in forming the transverse arc? This includes the fibularis longus muscle, fibularis brevis muscle, transverse head of the adductor hallucis muscle, and the posterior and the tibialis posterior muscle. There are two major ligaments that helps in strengthening the transverse arc. This includes the deep transverse ligament and the interosseous ligament, both the dorsal and plantar interosseous ligaments. So, like I said before, the three major components of each of the three arches of the foot, they include bones, ligaments, and muscles. But to be very specific, out of those three components, particular properties of those components helps in serving as a supporting factor to the arches. So in terms of the bones, the shape of the bone tends to serve as the supporting factor. In terms of the ligaments, it's the strength of the ligament that determines the supporting factor of the arc. And then in terms of the muscle, it's the tone of the muscle that helps in serving as a supporting factor. Let's end by talking about some clinical significances to the arches of the foot. Starting with some pathologies, we have the pes planus, also called flat foot. This occurs when there's an abnormal formation of the arches of the foot, and as a result, the feet tends to directly stand flat on the solid ground. We would also have a pes cavus. Pes cavus is when we have a very high arc. So imagine a scenario where the arc is present, but it is exaggerated. So in that case, we have what we call a high arc or a pes cavus. Then we can have an abnormality in terms of the positioning of the arc, and we could either have a talipes equinovarus or a talipes calcaneovalgus. Show you pictures of how that looks like, but we usually tend to call this club foot. This is when the arc is present but is deformed to the point in which one arc tends to be larger or longer or more prominent than the other. It could be that the medial longitudinal arc is more prominent, and as a result, it's forming a clubbed foot compared to that of the lateral side. And then the final clinical significance is that of a sprain. A sprain when there's a problem with the ligaments of the arch. There could be sprain to the deltoid ligament in the medial arc, a sprain to the interosseous ligament on the lateral side, or a sprain to any of the ligaments found in any of the arches. So these are pictures depicting the different pathologies that we could see. This is a flat foot, also known as pes planus. Like I said, is an absence of an arc. This is how the normal arc tends to look like. You can see how the feet is not directly planted flat on the ground. And then this is a high arc in which there's an exaggeration of the arches of the foot as shown in the image here. And that concludes our module on the arches of the foot.